Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to see such a good turnout tonight. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Michel Boujard. I'm the parish chef de police, and I have the honour of running this meeting. Just a few items of housekeeping before I start. Fire exits are that door there, and the door you all just come through. The assembly point is out on the car park at the front. And the toilets, should anybody need it, is just out the door there on the left-hand side. I'd like to ask you all, please, those who have mobile phones with them, to turn them, either put them on silent or turn them off, please. The way this evening is going to go is that candidates have all drawn lots to see what order they'll be talking in. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to introduce themselves. 30 seconds before the 3 minutes have elapsed, a bell will ring. The final bell rings after 3 minutes, which will keep ringing until the candidate stops speaking, or I send in the heavies. After all the introductions have been done, there will be questions. The questions will be in batches of 3. When asking a question, please could you give your name and confirm that you're from the parish, because obviously we'd like to give priority to people who live in the parish. If we have time at the end, we'll allow questions from other parishioners. Parishioners from other parishes. I don't know every parishioner personally, so I'll take it on trust. If you wish to ask a question, please raise your hand at the appropriate time, and I'll identify the person to ask the question. Please ensure that the questions are short and to the point. We don't want any questions addressed to any particular candidate either. It should be to all candidates. And please do not shout out comments or questions. Somebody will come round with a mic to allow you to speak, and everybody will be able to hear you that way. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer one or more of the 3 questions that have been asked. After 60 seconds, the bell will ring, and then after the 1.5 minutes, another bell will ring, and then I'll send in the heavies again. I intend to end the meeting about 9:30, so rather than waffle on, without further ado, I'll ask the first candidate, Mr. Power, if he would lead the proceedings.
Right. Good evening, St. Brelade. I think it's appropriate that I'm first out of the blocks tonight. I drew number 1, as I've been your deputy for Kennevay and Lamoy for the last 9 years, and my decision to stand for senator has caused a ripple and a good election for a replacement deputy. I think it's fair to say that I've served my apprenticeship here at Kennevay and Lamoy. And I think it's important that you do put your name forward for deputy, and then you go, if you feel you can do it, go for senator. And in the last, on this table tonight, I do know, some of you will know that Senator Gorst, Senator McLean, Senator Ossoff, Senator Faram, and Senator Routier all served as deputies in different districts, as did previous Chief Ministers Frank Walker and Terry Lesware. And like everyone in this room tonight, I believe that I've done the best I can to be a deputy for this district, but I've also made a few mistakes. And, you learn from your mistakes, but you learn not to repeat them. I care about this district. I care about the island. I care about the parish system. I care about the rich pageantry of island life. And I care about preservation of the parish system and the honorary system. And above all else, I do care about the extraordinary role that the bailiff has played in the history of this island over the last 800 years. I'm involved in a number of charities, so I care about people. I'm involved as a president, as a chairman, or as a vice chairman of 4 charities dealing with people, and I'm also vice president of one charity dealing with animals, the JSPCA. I'm as passionate as any Jerseyman or Jerseywoman about this island and how it is conducted into the future. Some of you will remember me 11 years ago, before I was ever in the States, with the Emerald campaign. But last year, I have maintained an interest in shipping. Last year, I was instrumental in bringing 2 of the 4 new shareholders into what is now Channel Island Lines, the replacement for Hewlin Runoff Shipping that collapsed. I spent the whole summer of 2013 completely immersed in trying to salvage that, and we were successful. I've worked hard, both as a deputy in the parish, as constituency deputy, as an assistant minister at housing, as a minister at housing, and the last 3 years chairman of the planning panel. Kennevay School, it's been designed for 450 students, it now has 900. We need a new school on the west of the island, and if I am re-elected, it'll be one of my priorities again to get that back on the agenda. We need a new school. We have a school that's in the middle of a residential area, and it doesn't work in that area anymore. Schools don't make good pupils. It is the drive that John Thorpe and now Sarah Haig has produced. That's all I got time for. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to share with you a little secret, and I shared it with the people of Trinity and St Wands, and that is we all get a little bit excited when we come out, for West some reason, because we like to think of distant and spurious connections we all have with the various parishes. We've got great nephews of parishioners and things like that, but I'm just warning you in advance, but I'm not going to participate in that sort of thing. Good evening. My name is Lyndon Farnham, and can I just first start by congratulating you all on winning the 2009 Britain in Bloom Award for the best small seaside resort. That's congratulations. I was first elected to the States in 1999, and I served as a deputy until 2005, when I stepped down to focus on my family and business commitments. I was re-elected to the States as senator in 2011. I am the serving Assistant Minister at Home Affairs, where I have responsibility for the Jersey Fire and Rescue Service and the prison service. And I know we are all very proud of our excellent emergency services, but I am especially proud to have served during a time when we have seen many improvements in many areas, not least the police, where positive improvements have led to greater public confidence in our police force, and I'm pleased to say that crime in Jersey continues to fall. I have successfully brought a number of propositions to the state since being re-elected, including a move to introduce political accountability for our justice system, and I now serve on the Bailiffs Consultative Panel and the Justice Advisory Panel. And I am the immediate past president of the Jersey Hospitality Association and continue to champion tourism as an important pillar of our economy. I also led the campaign to keep the island-wide mandate and the office of senator, which I'm pleased to say is alive and well, and long may it continue. And I'm also going to vote yes to keeping the constables. If you elect me, ladies and gentlemen, I shall be seeking the position of Economic Development Minister, not least because I believe that we should put economic prosperity firmly back to the top of the agenda. Because in real terms, notwithstanding the very good news we've had recently that the economy has levelled off, it's still at one of its lowest levels since 1998. Excuse me. From agriculture and the rural economy, to sports and event-led tourism, to fintech and the digital economy, to economic diversification and small business development, it's time to act. It's time to reintroduce the policies that will return strength and drive and energy to the economy. Now, there is still a widespread belief in the island that the states are not performing effectively. And the main concerns that some politicians are more motivated by self-interest or the interest of their party than the interest of the island, and some simply do not have the knowledge, skills or experience to be able to do the job. And there's a lot to do to safeguard our future prosperity, for which we need people with real experience. We need people who are sensible and able and proficient. My politics are not about left or right or senseless bickering or time wasting. My politics are about getting things done. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Andrew Green, and all you have to remember on election day is the colour. I proudly represented St Helier as a deputy now for 2 terms. I believe that I have delivered both as a backbencher and as a minister. Time doesn't allow me to list all the things I've achieved, but if I was to pick one, it would be the Housing Transformation Programme, transforming homes, transforming lives. My plan was described by independent experts as honest and courageous. It was also action-centred. The results we can see just round the corner here on the Bellevue site, now named after the late Captain Ernest Briard. But today is World Mental Health Day. And in view of this, and the fact that I wish to be, if elected, the next health minister, I decided in the time remaining I would talk about that taboo subject, mental health. This was a matter of great interest at the St Mary's hustings, and I believe that as a community and as a government we need to work much harder to address the issues of stigma in mental health. I would like to use my experience in directing change and 40 years senior management experience in the health service both here and in the UK. Not that we wish to follow the UK, you understand. We must get into a position where our mental health is recognised as being just as important as our physical health. We live in an increasing complex and stressful world. Rates of depression and anxiety are increasing. And at any one time, 1 in 4 develop some form of mental illness. It can affect anyone of any age at any time, and there's no doubt that you will know somebody going through the struggle at the present time. My research tells me that by 2020, mental health problems will be the second most common cause of ill health, second only to heart disease, and this is both unacceptable and unaffordable. I believe that we need to invest in much earlier interventions and promote mental health well-being. And we need to do this now. And we need to do it in our schools, in our workplace, and in our community. Prevention is so much better than cure, and for that matter, so much cheaper. Genuine partnerships need to be formed between health, education, employers, and voluntary organisations. Jointly, we must design and promote and deliver simple training and messages, encourage people to recognise the importance of their mental health as much as their physical health. Time doesn't allow me to explain fully my thoughts, but it was Einstein that said, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Well, I don't want what we've got. I want to be your next health minister. We don't just need a new hospital, although that is vital, and there's large amounts of work to be done. We need a mental health service that is fit for purpose. We need a mental health service that is proactive, not reactive. A mental health service that we can be proud of. I want this for you, I want this for our families, and I want this for Jersey. So if you want a new senator who has experience, courage, vision, thinks independently but can work collectively with a track record of getting things done, please give me one of your votes. Go Green 14.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm an accountant and I work in the finance industry. If elected, I'd like to see the Guernsey and Jersey States Assembly work together. I would like to see online debates between the two assemblies quite often. Both Jersey and Guernsey are very important to the UK. And if we work together rather than separately on the same agenda, we would promote ourselves much more effectively as robust jurisdictions in order to do business. To give you an idea of how important we are, 1 in every £20 is invested in the UK passes via Jersey. Jersey is a conduit for £500 billion into the UK. Jersey alone contributes £2.3 billion in tax each year and supports 180,000 jobs. Through working together, we could make savings. We could also make savings by sharing costs in law drafting, for instance, a lot of duplication of laws, the formation of a Channel Island University if we want to, education, health, and institutions such as Jersey Finance and the Jersey Financial Services Commission could not only work with their Guernsey counterparts to make cost savings, but also could regulate and promote the Channel Islands collectively. Jersey needs to promote itself as a clean finance centre. I work as a compliance accountant in finance. Because there's an estimated $600 billion worth of fraud committed annually, I'm well aware our finance industry needs to be constantly vigilant. Jersey's in a very strong position globally. It has a strong legal apparatus to stop money laundering. As a result, I would like to see Jersey referred to not as a tax haven, but rather as an excellent centre of finance that places funds in useful assets. However, one inevitable side effect of our economic boom in the 80s and 90s is that we have neglected the island natural beauty. Visitor numbers to the island have decreased over the years. We failed to keep our population in check, and worst of all, we failed to stop building in the countryside. If we value our local heritage, we have to prioritise town developments. I no longer believe that the island plan is our best advantage. It appears to a roadmap to further urbanisation of the countryside. If we had had an effective environment minister, we would not have had that creeping urbanisation in the countryside, that green sludge in St Albans Bay, those endless debates on Plemore, those traffic jams. My suggestion is the island government needs to appoint a Minister of Population. After all, the question comes up at every hustings. Population is the elephant in the room. Nobody wants to deal with it. Ladies and gentlemen, we still live in a fast-changing world, and we're connected through fast broadband. We're hit well above our waist for our size. We continue to strive to the best. We should continue to strive to our best in many fields. As I was originally trained as a research scientist, I see the solutions that other people don't. If elected, I'd like to make it my priority not only to balance the books, but to try and appoint effective population and environmental ministers. If you believe in protection of the local heritage, a population balanced, financially balanced books, vibrant, educated and forward-thinking Jersey, please humbly vote for David Richardson. Thank you.
Monsieur Chef de Police, some Brelade's parishioners and Husting's enthusiasts. I want to start by giving you an assurance. In my manifesto, it says I think Jersey should seriously consider looking at a major new reclamation scheme. I'm not talking about down in St Albans. We've been there. You know what I think. But please don't start running yet another petition because what I have in mind is way away from St Albans. Now, I don't know how many of you read the Telegraph. Interesting item in there this week about tens of thousands of UK students, secondary school level, are going to start their classes at 10 o'clock. Someone has discovered that students of that particular age are really not very good in the mornings. Apparently, their brains start 2 hours later than most adults. And they've discovered, and has already been proven in the United States, that actually academic results improve if secondary schools start at 10 o'clock. Now, why am I talking to you on an education subject as a former transport minister? Well, a bit of lateral thinking here. Let's just imagine, and you're all very familiar with the jam-ups to get into town early in the morning. Let's just imagine if all the schools, in the secondary schools in town, were starting at 10 o'clock. That's actually going to take hundreds of cars out of the morning peak congestion time. I've looked at the figures. Actually, it could in effect give you the effect of permanent school holidays when we know the traffic runs very smoothly. It's a piece of lateral thinking. Now, I put this to the Council of Ministers a month after they were elected. 3 years later, they've done absolutely nothing about it. So I subsequently pursued it with a friendly states member who put a proposition together, and I understand that both the Education Department and Transport and Technical Services are looking at it very favourably. So we may actually have a solution to the morning peak congestion problem staring us in the face, which will also benefit the education of young people in this island. I just have to say I'm terribly sorry for not having thought of it when I was Minister of Transport. But you live and you learn. Now, my manifesto is pretty clear on basic subjects. I think we've all been through a terrible time in the recession, and you need to back off on taxes. And I think we have to look hard at how we can trim the cost of government. I also want to give you an assurance that I'm a massive fan of the island-wide mandate, and if you vote for me, I will be supporting the senators. I want to see a States Assembly of senators and constables. It's the deputies I want to get rid of. I will deal with you honestly, straightforwardly, and if you want someone who's likely to stir it up in the States Assembly, please consider me for one of your votes.
Mr. Chef de Police, ladies and gentlemen, for the last 6 years as Treasury Minister, my service has been coincided with the world's worst financial crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, the easy thing to do in politics is to put decisions off. During my time in politics, I have been asked to serve in some of the most difficult states departments. Some would say the poison chalices of politics. And on your behalf, I've had to make some extremely difficult decisions. Some of them, as you will know, highly controversial. As Treasury Minister for the last 6 years, you have probably heard me repeatedly on the radio, in the newspaper, on TV, talking about finance, the financial services industry, and all things money. It is true, that has been my focus. It has had to be. All of my energy has had to be directed on protecting the island from the worst effects of the worldwide financial crisis. It has been difficult for me, and I have been faced with some of the most difficult decisions of my political career. My role has, however, required me to work as a team with other ministers, solving problems. A lot has been achieved. We have delivered £60 million worth of recurring savings. We have started the long journey, as Andrew Green has said, in relation to reforming healthcare, both mental and physical healthcare. We've put capital in. We've created jobs. If we wouldn't have taken action, as the Chief Minister said at the start of this term, we would have faced unemployment at 3,000 or more. Today, it is coming down. My work has been to work with Alan McLean to boost economic growth, and I've taken the leading part in rebuilding the financial services strategy, which was at real risk. And finally, I've taken my part in also trying to restore the island's reputation outside of the island in France and in the UK. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been tough to be a minister through a crisis, but I would like to think that at all times during the 15 years that I have been privileged to serve, I've always put my own popularity aside and always thought about what is in the island's long-term interests. I realise that many people have strong views about Philip Ozov. This is reinforced, of course, by an understandable negative political environment and media. But I have wanted to say to you tonight that I have spent all my life singularly, passionately focused on securing Jersey's future. I have a work ethic which is to be the first in and the last out. I work hard on your behalf. I try to make sense of an increasingly fast-moving, difficult, confusing world. I'm an optimist. I believe the world is turning, and I would very much like, with the policies that you have on your seat, to be part of a rebuilding, constructive Jersey, which I believe has a great future. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris McGee. I have a law degree from the University of Edinburgh and Oslo. The public keeps saying to me that the states lack transparency and accountability, which is why, after every decision, if I get in, I'll be uploading a short YouTube video explaining why I voted the way I did. Courtesy of this betting slip, if I top the poll, I'll be donating 10 grand to 10 Jersey charities. Find out which at facebook.com/Chris McGee for Senator. If I get a seat, I'll be donating 10% of my salary to charity. Speaking of money, this is from the recent GVA report. Quote, since the global economic downturn in 2008, total GVA has decreased by a sixth, 16% in real terms. Over this period, the GVA of the island's finance sector has decreased by a third in real terms, whilst that of the non-finance sectors overall and excluding the rental income of private households decreased by 5%. This year brought 2% growth to the tourism industry. This monumental achievement was obviously the work of politicians and our beloved banana bird. It had nothing to do with the weather. Ask Senator Faram and he'll tell you that the economy is in its worst shape since 1998. Ask Senator Ozov and he'll tell you that the island's economy is the envy of the world. Only one of these statements can be true. Those of you who have ever been to a supermarket or paid a utility bill will know which. Perhaps some of the 40% plus of islanders who are struggling just to make ends meet are here in the audience this evening. It's Friday night, so let's talk about drugs. Islanders will have started taking theirs by now, with many more to do so as the weekend progresses. Jersey has a drug problem, and its name is alcohol. There are 4,000 alcoholics on the island, 10,000 problem drinkers, and 2 million of your money is spent in A&E every year dealing with the aftermath of alcohol. People falling down drunk, fights in bars and streets for no reason, domestic violence, alcohol poisoning, the list goes on. In fact, you can go out, buy 3 cases of vodka, 1,000 fags, a freezer full of ice cream and a bucket of bleach. No one bats an eye. All of these will do serious damage to your health and or kill you. Ladies and gentlemen, you are free to kill yourself by whatever means, provided your poison has the government-approved stamp on it. The states get a cut of the action, let's not forget. We've got a hospital to build. Where's the Marlborough man? I fully support your right to put whatever you want in your own body. I'm not going to slap the pint out of your hand or the fag out of your mouth because I don't agree with your life choices. If you're a heroin addict, there are support structures in place, like clean, free syringes and methadone programs. You're treated with compassion. All research on successful drug policy shows that treatment should be increased and law enforcement decreased while abolishing mandatory minimum sentences. Prohibition, quote, prohibition will work great injury to the cause of temperance. It is a species of intemperance within itself, for it goes beyond the bounds of reason in that it attempts to control a man's appetite by legislation and makes a crime out of things that are not crimes. A prohibition law strikes a blow at the very principles upon which our government was founded. Abraham Lincoln. If you agree, vote Chris McGee. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen of St Brelade's, good evening to you, and thank you for coming. My name is Jeff Haben. I'm a businessman. I'm a management accountant, current chairman of Jersey Friends of Air Search, and I have experience of the motor industry, airline industry, retail, building, and consulting in varying parts of the world. As we've heard in the last few days, our economy is now no longer going down. Well, it means we've hit bottom at least. But we need to go up, and we need to go up very quickly, because we haven't got the money to do what we would like to do. And to do this, we do need to support the finance industry, tourism, digital initiatives, and that's quite rightly that we are doing so. But the small and medium businesses in the island are not being supported correctly. We need a lighter touch with them. We need to look at licensing for smaller businesses. We need to look at the employment law. If we can give them a lighter touch, they will grow, and it will provide the biggest take-up of our unemployment numbers and lessen the social cost for us all. But overriding this as well, we need to put Jersey first, all of us, not just the states of Jersey, but the whole community. If we can do that to ourselves and to the world, and get our identity back as not being part of the EU or the UK, we must use local expertise, local suppliers, more than we do, as much as we possibly can. Keep the money in our economy, not in somebody else's. But there is another side of the economic coin, and that is the states must make savings too. If we can do both of these, then we will have funds to do what we wish in the medium and long term, and we will have much less pressure on raising taxes or GST. I come from a business background where I have to react and be proactive every day to the changing environment around me. And I've been into varying situations in varying businesses, and what I do is I have to look at where I am today and where I need to be in a week, a month, 5 years. And this is what you do in any department in the States. I am not going to stand here and say that I have a narrow viewpoint of involving social security or health or education. I go into a situation and see where it has to go, and I move it on. Get an action plan, work with people, and get it done. The States is not being reactive enough. It needs to be. I would like to be part of this process. I would like to represent all of you, and I would very much like one of your votes. Thank you.
Good evening. Those who are elected to the States this time won't be in an enviable position. They'll be inheriting a broken system. The 2015 budget was only balanced after every available pot was emptied. There's a future deficit promised. Departments are being asked to cut their budgets. Yet everywhere we hear about public services being already inadequate. The outgoing Education Minister says that the 11 to 16 schools need additional funding, and they do, to provide specialist teachers, vocational training and smaller classes for disaffected students. The health service, and particularly the mental health services for adults and children, are underfunded, leading to long waiting lists and increased suicides. I was talking to a St Brelade resident recently who said there was no transport available to get her husband to hospital, even though he was unable to walk. Respite care is inadequate. This costs more money in the long term if carers can no longer cope. Pensioners can't afford to have their teeth fixed or their glasses replaced. We no longer have Rolls-Royce services, and over 40% of islanders are struggling to get by, though we are still hailed as a wealthy island. Not one of the ministers standing for re-election will grasp the nettle and say we need to raise more taxes, although, funnily enough, the outgoing ministers do. They say the answer is efficiency savings, though the modernisation process won't deliver the sums required. We hear of top-heavy management. True, but this can't be changed quickly or cheaply. They talk of growth solving our problems, but if that growth involves allowing rampant immigration that will only put more pressure on our schools and health service and create more overcrowding in urban areas, won't it create more problems than it solves? There must be a strong political will to use the housing and work law to regulate the population. We can save money more effectively by encouraging employers to pay a living wage, which will reduce our income support bill. 40% of the 90 million income support bill is an in-work benefit, subsidising low-paying employers. Hard-working people should not have the indignity of claiming benefit to support their families. The abuse of zero-hours contracts also puts a strain on income support and creates great insecurity amongst workers who are afraid to spend. Putting money into the hands of the low-paid is the best way to encourage growth because they spend all they earn. If we still need to raise taxes, they should come from those most able to pay by raising the cap on social security payments or having a 25% tax rate on earnings over 100,000. As a member of a party with a shared vision, I will be able to make changes that will ensure that Jersey is no longer run by the rich, for the rich, but is a fairer society for all.
This is an important election. State spending keeps rising and our income is falling. At the moment we have assets to cover this, but we have fewer people paying tax and no new source of income for the states to balance this. Last year we reduced the marginal rate by 1%. This has reduced states' income by about 8 million. Removal of the deemed distribution has lost us at least another 6 million. Not a lot in the scheme of things, but 6 million here, 8 million there, soon adds up. The number of people paying tax at 20% has halved from 12,000 to 6,800. Those paying at marginal rates pay 52% of the total personal income tax take. 6 years ago, they paid 41%. The tax burden is growing on Middle Jersey. The GVA figures are encouraging, but if the increased business comes from trading companies, they don't pay tax. When the financial services industry originally rose in Jersey, care was taken by Cyril the Marquand to ensure that Jersey did not adopt policies to which critics would point and say, "You're a tax haven." We've been under pressure from outside agencies regarding our tax system. We need to re-examine it to put the island back on the principled path charted by Cyril the Marquand. As chairman of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel, we've examined the budget. One conclusion is that we have a deficit, in total over about £100 million, and around 50 million of that on current account. Some of this is structural. And the only way to deal with a structural deficit is to increase income, which could mean taxes, and to reduce spending, which could mean services, but in my experience, efficiencies can cut costs, not services. But all that has been left until after the election. The centralised rates tax has been discarded. We still have a capital gains tax, a poll tax, and a tax based on unrealised profits proposed. And once these are applied to one class of asset, property, they will soon be applied to others. You will hear many promises during elections. I merely ask you to ask, how much will it cost and where will that money come from? This is an extremely important election. Your vote is your voice. It matters. Please use it, and please remember Sarah Ferguson when you vote.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ian Gorst, and it's been an honour for me to serve as Chief Minister for the last 3 years. During that time, I've sought to build consensus, face up to problems and make difficult decisions. This evening, I'd like to focus on education. We've heard a number of emotive and overstated comments about our current system over the last 2 weeks. And of course, I know that if we were starting with a blank sheet of paper, we would not start with the system that we've currently got. But I believe we can either be system-focused or child-centred. I believe, therefore, that we have a choice over the next 3 years. We can either spend months and perhaps years discussing and arguing about our system, or, and this I must say is my preference, we can focus on standards right across the system, ensuring that each child reaches their full potential, either academically or, just as importantly, vocationally. We can focus our curriculum more on our economy, on our culture, and on our history, helping young people to know what skills will help them ultimately to find work in Jersey. We can give our schools more autonomy. We can make sure we appropriately support not just vulnerable students, but also their families, and we can do it earlier. That's why I support signing up to the 1001 Days programme. It's a programme about prevention and support from the first day of a child's life. 2 weeks ago, I was pleased to sign a partnership agreement with Jersey's largest teaching union, an agreement that recognises that in the future we need to work together, government, teachers, and right across our community, to raise standards for all and to enable all children to reach their full potential. We must focus on teaching and on learning. Now, I know that in St Brelard's you've got excellent teachers at Lamoy, at Montnicole, and at Le Cannevet, but I think we all agree that Le Cannevet's building is no longer what we would expect from a modern teaching environment. And therefore I commit to working with the parish, with the education service, with property holdings, and importantly with planning, to create a teaching environment that we in the west of the island can be proud of. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see and read about other issues on my website, but I would be honoured to receive one of your votes on election day to continue to work towards a healthy and a secure future for us all. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I should like to talk this evening about foreign affairs and the importance to Jersey of nurturing international relationships and maintaining a good reputation abroad. I was honoured to be appointed the First Minister of External Relations a year ago. The conduct of foreign affairs is a responsibility that I share with the Chief Minister in accordance with a general policy direction from the Council of Ministers. We publish our foreign policy objectives on the internet under the title External Relations Common Policy. One of the first principles in that document is to promote Jersey's international identity and good reputation as a responsible country committed to the rule of law, international standards, and respect for international human and labour rights. Our primary aim is to advance our interests with our closest geographical neighbours, namely the UK and France. It is disappointing, therefore, that the states members of the Reform Party seem determined to undermine Jersey's reputation in France. ATTAC is an organisation that misguidedly seeks to damage Jersey's reputation and finance industry, which gives employment to more than 12,000 people. It was extraordinary that several Reform Party members gave a warm welcome to a delegation from ATTAC France a few weeks ago. For states members to speak ill of Jersey to the French media is not sensible, because it feeds uninformed prejudice in that country against the island and puts jobs at risk here. Criticising government policies in Jersey is fine,
but do not attack your country abroad. That is treachery. Advancing a truthful and positive account of Jersey is important to counter the misinformation that people often read and hear in the UK and elsewhere. It is also vital for our economic interests and for the promotion of growth and inward investment and for the creation of jobs. That is what my ministry seeks to do, particularly in the UK through the London office and in France through our office there. The new ministry proved particularly valuable last year when damaging sanctions were avoided by forceful diplomacy and hard work by officials, and Jersey was removed from the French blacklist just in time. All is not perfect, and there is much to be done, but we should be proud of our island and show that pride in dealings with foreigners. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I've decided to step out of my consulting room and into politics because as a doctor, there's only so much I can do for your health. It is now clear that politicians have a much greater influence over the wider determinants of health. So what are these? The first is to give every child the best start in life. There is a marked difference in social and emotional readiness for school by the age of 5. And we know what makes that difference. Every child needs attuned, sensitive caregiving. When asked, 20% of parents of 3-year-olds do not think that it's important to talk or cuddle their child. Nursery and infant teachers hesitate to comfort children in distress in Britain in case a cuddle is misinterpreted. Cuddling, talking, playing, singing, and reading all matter to children. Half of the difference in ability can be explained by difference in parenting. Some children have only 1 million words spoken directly to them before they start school, while others have over 4.5 million. We can teach parenting, but more important is the social and financial well-being of parents. Scandinavian countries are particularly good at this, and Jersey politicians could do more to enable parents to give their children the best start in life and help them to maximise the social and emotional intelligence of the next generation. The second thing that politicians can do is to create fair employment and good work for all. The quality of work matters. A poor work environment, such as 0 hours contract, can be recognised by one that subjects employees to a lack of control, high demand, low support, an imbalance between effort and reward, low organisational justice. These 5 features have been shown to account for 1/3 of all mental illness in the working age population. Unemployment is an even bigger risk factor, with youth unemployment being particularly damaging. Across Europe, 1% rise in unemployment leads to a 0.8% rise in suicide and homicide rates. But active social protection, such as that demonstrated by the Bromley by Bow Health Centre in Tower Hamlets, can hugely mitigate against these effects. The third is to create a healthy, sustainable environment. Having green spaces and a strong social and community network makes a difference. If you feel it's important to have someone who understands the real determinants of health in politics when we are about to commit a considerable amount of money to healthcare, then please vote for Dr. Zoe Cameron on the 15th of October. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Konrad Krinski. Thank you for coming to listen to me and other candidates tonight. You are going to hear about many successful projects of this government, but the truth is that the current State Assembly is completely detached from reality and the issues we are facing. And to prove you that, ladies and gentlemen, I will give you some examples. They tell you that we have recovered from the economic downturn, yet the deficit in the public spending is estimated at £95 million, and very soon there will be more cuts across the public sector services. They tell you that we have the world-class financial services, yet we have joined a new league that places Jersey below Glasgow and Almaty in Kazakhstan. They'll tell you that the number of unemployed has dropped, yet the new figures showed that the number of people out of work has fallen to 1,450 unemployed at the end of September. They tell you that we need to control our government spendings, yet when asked what the figure is, none of the current ministers could get it right. They tell you that they want to support small businesses, yet it's a common knowledge that a lot of companies in Jersey use UK service providers for maintenance purposes. So where's the logic? Do we need a specialist from UK to change the light bulb? Or should we ask a local electrician who struggles for work to do the job? And what does it say about respecting residential qualification for work? I believe that Jersey companies should be prioritized and protected by law, and therefore if particular services are available in Jersey, then contracts should be granted to local contractors in Jersey. No wonder why the money is going out of Jersey. There are no big contracts for local companies, no jobs to fill local people, and not enough taxes and social contributions paid to the Treasury. The current system of socio-economic policy is unfit for purpose, and there is too much disparity between the government and ordinary people. I'm standing here because I want to propose new opportunities and respond to your dissatisfaction and regret. If you elect me, I will work to support small businesses and implement policies that will help them grow, reform the current tax relief policies, promote further and higher education in Jersey, support young people from low-income families by a system of grants and rewards, reform the current policies and regulations at work, support back-to-work program schemes, support tourist industry, and bring alternative energy solutions providing clean and sustainable electric power. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see those changes happen, then I kindly ask you to consider me for one of your votes. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm John Young. 3 years ago, you elected me as parish deputy after careers in the public and private sectors and as former chief officer of planning. And since that time, I've been chairman of the Environment Scrutiny Panel, and I've held many public hearings and reviews, including energy policy, and I've worked hard to safeguard the environment, countrysides and our coasts. And as a backbench member, I've gained states' agreement to many private propositions, changes to the island plan, including a new policy for over 55 homes in all parishes, and protection for St Brelade's Bay, amendments to the planning law, a new appeals system, reduced stamp duty for first-time buyers, and many other things. Time tonight limits me to speak of just the big policy challenges that we face. Jersey's economy has fallen by 16% in the recession, our finance industry by a third, and continues to fall, 3% last year, and we've fallen down the league table of finance centres. Now we must take note of these signs and encourage new enterprises in all sectors and reduce cost and bureaucracy that government imposes on our businesses. We must develop our creative and IT sectors and acquire new skills. For example, renewable energy technology, major opportunity which will create jobs. And we must get behind tourism and expand event-led tourism, environment, heritage, arts, the wealth of things that go on, like Broncards Festival. And of course, the forecasts of our income have fallen significantly below what we expected to receive and relied upon in state spending plans. Our forecast income has fallen by 31 million in 2014 and 45 million in 2015. And so our government next year will be spending £35 million more than we receive. And the deficit is forecast to get worse in 2016 and 17. And so we're clearly, ladies and gentlemen, living beyond our means. And the solution is not, in my view, to raise taxes. We must review spending priorities and reform the public sector, reducing corporate overheads and layers of management. We must protect frontline services and find ways of releasing funding for our training and education of our young people and meet the needs of our ageing population. And we need to provide access to primary health care for all, not just those who can afford it. And we need to develop a health service which is right for Jersey and not simply copying the NHS, working with GPs and voluntary bodies and stronger political direction of our health service. Above all, we must improve our government. We need joined-up government in touch with the community. Bill says, ladies and gentlemen, I have a track record. I ask you vote for change. I ask you vote for me as Senator. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Mr. Chef de Police, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Malcolm Ferry. I do have a strong link to the parish, and it's not a spurious one, because this is a parish that I spent much of my time in as a youth when I attended Kennevay School from 1977, that long hot summer, until 1982. And I have very fond memories of this whole area. The school and the precinct are the hubs of this community, and it is clear that there is investment which is long overdue in those areas. In my current role as Chief Executive of the Jersey Citizens Advice Bureau, I've campaigned successfully on many issues and regularly make contact to media outlets and put pressure on policymakers to bring about real change that affects the lives of islanders. This work has taught me so much about the problems that people living on this island face on a day-to-day basis. When you get a chance, I'd ask that if you click on my website, malcolmferry.com, you can start my campaign video and see and hear all of the issues that I believe are important. An increasing number of people appear to be disenfranchised from our community, and whilst this appears to be a national problem, we in Jersey have the benefit of close community ties, and we can stop this decline. In my experience, the root of these problems can very often be identified at an early stage through the education system. And I would like to see more engagement and support through schools to let young people know that help is available and there are solutions to their problems. I've worked hard and made positive changes in every position that I've held in my career so far, from the finance industry to the civil service. And I can promise that as a States member, my resolve would be just as strong. So, if you want a state to see a new face and have some new thinking in the States Assembly, but you also want someone who understands the island and has its best interests at heart, then I would ask that you consider me for one of your votes on polling day. Whilst I've been out and about, I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and after looking at my leaflet and talking to me for some time, he said, Malcolm, you're one of the few candidates who doesn't talk in buzzwords, doesn't talk in acronyms. I can actually understand what you're saying and what you're trying to communicate to me. So with your support, I would like to bring this plain speaking approach into the House. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul Routier. During this election, I have spent some time focusing on the need for improved social services. This morning, I had the opportunity to attend the showcase event for World Mental Health Day. I have to say it was really impressive to see the close collaboration of the voluntary and community sector and states departments. What I would say is we need to put more extra efforts into and resources into the community services generally. Another topic that I focused on during the hustings has been what many islands consider to be a top priority, and that is that of population control. We know that there are views across our community that vary widely. Those of us who are concerned about green fields, school capacity, availability of housing, unemployment, and there are also those of us who are the wealth generators and businesses who require appropriately qualified staff. The control of housing and work law, which is the responsibility of the Chief Minister, which is delegated to myself as Assistant Chief Minister, we share the responsibility for administering the law with the Economic Development Minister, the Housing Minister and the Assistant Social Security Minister. This is deliberately structured to find a balanced approach to decisions about controlling access to work and housing. Today, the Statistics Unit have published the findings of their manpower returns. And thankfully, I'm pleased to say that we're seeing the results of the effectiveness of the new law coming through, with more local people in work and less registered people who have been here for under 5 years working in our community. It is not only the effectiveness of the law that has achieved that, it is also the fantastic support of some employers working with the Back to Work team. There are more people in work now than there has been for a long time, and there is also less unemployment of local residents. And for those who have said that the new law is ineffective and not being policed, I'll just point them to the magistrate courts of a week or so ago. There have been convictions and binding over orders to leave the island. In saying that, I must emphasise that we are open for business. And we welcome new businesses to the island with new entrepreneurs who are going to create high-value employment for already existing residents. Our island businesses need a fiscal and regulatory environment which encourages growth, and it must not be forgotten that wealth generators pay taxes to fund the services our community require. However, controlling the level of taxes must be a priority for a stable and prosperous island. These are challenging times which require clear thinking. I do hope that I've shown that I have the skills, compassion and business sense to make sound decisions. If you would like me to continue working for you, please give me one of your votes. Thank you very much indeed.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alan McLean. I've enjoyed wandering around the parish today, meeting a number of parishioners and listening to issues that matter to you. I think what came up more than anything else that I heard several times was the disgraceful decision taken by the states to reject the referendum on electoral reform. A number of you mentioned that, and I can understand it. Ladies and gentlemen, I was elected Senator in 2008 and since then have served as Minister for Economic Development during the most severe global financial crisis imaginable. I'm extremely proud to have had the opportunity to serve my island and our community on important local issues as well as on the international stage. I've worked hard together with colleagues to build Jersey's reputation abroad, developing trade links and securing inward investment to boost our economy, its diversification and local jobs. We've invested in supporting startups and small businesses across all sectors, the lifeblood of any community and economy. We've invested to boost innovation, new technologies, the creative and digital industries. As a result, the economy is improving, and a number of sectors, including agriculture and tourism, returned to growth in 2013. We also integrated the harbour and airport, improving services and saving taxpayers £1 million worth of costs. We reformed the beach lifeguard service, appointing the RNLI, a move which cut the cost to taxpayers, improving safety, and stopped us having to import lifeguards. Instead, 90% of lifeguards are now fully qualified and trained local people. We completely redesigned the Ailing Lottery, which resulted last year in the largest sum ever being raised for local good causes, £680,000. That's £250,000 more than ever before. But there are still threats ahead, and many islanders are struggling to make ends meet. We must remove unnecessary regulation and legislation that strangles businesses, especially small businesses, adds costs, and of course frustrates many islanders. I want to see skills and training programmes developed and, importantly, aligned to industry needs to ensure more local jobs for local people. That's how we begin to deal with and reduce immigration pressures. I want to see the cost of government controlled rather than the soft option of tax rises that hurt islanders and the economy. I want to see a thorough and quick review of the questionable two-site hospital plan. I want to see Jersey aspire to build world-class, modern, innovative healthcare and education systems. With courage and vision, and by embracing new technologies and new ideas from around the world, we can turn today's challenges into tomorrow's opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm passionate about Jersey. I hope you will consider me for one of your votes on October the 15th. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank all the candidates for their words. We're now going to have question time. I would like people who want to ask questions, if they could raise their hands, please. And please, the questions to be short and concise, please. Gentleman over there in the red jumper.
He's no gentleman.
Brelade number 1. If they're successful in getting elected next week, can the candidates please give me their view on legalising cannabis for medicinal purposes?
Gentleman at the back there with the blue jumper.
Thank you. Kit Ashton, St Brelade number 2. My question is very simple. Do candidates agree that for Jersey's finance industry to continue to thrive, we must lead the way on transparency and cooperation? And if so, what do candidates think of the Foreign Affairs Minister's recent attempt to delay the introduction of FATCA, something which the Chief Minister said at the time would risk harming our reputation as a cooperative jurisdiction? That's my question. Thank you.
The lady in the blue there.
Thank you. My name is Jo Mitchell and I live on John Farm. And for my sins, I'm a retired civil servant. I'd like to ask...
You do. Sorry.
Do I really? Oh, sorry. I apologise. Again, my name is Jo Mitchell and I live on John Farm and I'm a retired civil servant. I would like to ask the candidates if they do support the principle of a new secondary school for Les Kenneveys, as education seems to be a topic for many of you tonight. Thank you.
Right, so we have 3 questions. The first, if successful, their views on legalising cannabis for medicinal purposes. The second, whether the candidates agree that for the finance industry to thrive, it must be transparent. And the third, whether their view, for their views on a new secondary school for St Brelade. Could I ask?
Yeah. Can I take the third?
My question was on the FATCA specifically and the Foreign Affairs Minister's attempt to delay it and stop us signing.
Right, well, I think we'd agreed beforehand that there'd be no questions aimed at specific people. I'm sorry, so we'll just... So, are you happy enough? Yeah. Okay, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, can I take the third question first, which is the whole question of a new secondary school for the west of the island. It's not just this catchment area, it's St Brelade, St Peter, St Juan, perhaps St Lawrence. And the question is, we've got a school that is in the middle of a residential housing estate, which is 50 years old, was designed for 450 students and has now got virtually 880, 890. We need a new school in the west of the island. I'd like to see it kept at Kennevay. I would like an exception to the island plan so that a new school has got to be built within the Kennevay-Lamoy area, ideally the Kennevay Road or Le Crew. The existing school is about 3 acres. A new school would have to have 14 acres. It's a big issue. This first question I'll take next, which is what is the candidate's view on medicinal or herbal cannabis? I've got a sister who's a medical doctor. Her view is the Journal of the American Medical Association says that there are issues to do with increased psychosis to do with herbal cannabis, and the American Medical Association and the Federal Drug Administration are doing more research, specifically on the experiment in Colorado. And on FATCA, I think I'm about to run out of time, but it was an example of where collective responsibility with Senator Bailhache and the rest of the Council of Ministers didn't quite work, but he has his own personal views, as do the Council of Ministers. Thank you.
Excuse me if I'm a bit croaky. One more hustings to go after this. Legalising cannabis for medicinal purposes it can be prescribed now by the health minister, and I would have to be persuaded with the right medical evidence that we need to do that. I remain open-minded because somebody is suffering, and that is the only thing that can help them, and then it must be considered. But we must also remember why these drugs were made illegal in the first place. Jersey does lead the way with transparency in its financial industry, which is why we are one of the world's leading financial centres. I can't answer for Senator Bailhache. I'm not passing it over to him, but that's something he's going to have to explain when we get down the line to him. Yes, I do agree that in principle the Kennevay, and I did do a spell there, needs to be rebuilt, moved. Of course, the big debate is where, and of course what we then do with what's left. I would quite like to see what's left turned into something of good recreational use for the parish. Thank you.
Taking the questions in order, legalising cannabis for medicinal purposes, I believe that no right-thinking health minister or doctor would take that view without the advice of the National Institute of Clinical Excellence. We're not doctors, we have to take proper advice on that. And when they approve it, be it clinically produced in a clinical area, fine, but until they approve it, I say no. Because we don't know the side effects. On the FATCA agreement, you're right, we need transparency. We also need political stability, and we need the industry to understand that it's actually wanted and supported here. But your specific question about FATCA, I think it was wrong not to support it. And Senator Bailhache knows my view. I actually spoke to a number, I meet regularly with formally with members of the finance industry, and the information I was getting back from them is that they wanted this transparency. They thought it was absolutely necessary, and that we had to go ahead with it. Secondary school, I'm probably slightly at odds. We do need a new school. I've been round it. It's not adequate. But I think we need to, at the same time, look at the way we educate our children. Our vocational skills training is a disgrace. We produce 13 bricklayers in 3 years. We need a skills centre at Highlands and a new school at Kennevay, but the numbers would be lower if people are transferring up to Highlands to the skills centre. We need a skills centre. We need an academic centre. We've got the academic in Holia. Thank you.
As for cannabis, no, I'm totally anti it. When I was in med school, somebody committed suicide with it, and when I was in Zambia, people were always being put into the mental asylum, never came out because they took too much of it, and particularly if somebody really needs it, perhaps a doctor might prescribe it, but I think it's very, very rare and unnecessary. FATCA, the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, I think it's called, which would go between Jersey and UK and the US. Of course, I think it should be signed. Transparency is really, really important. It's very important we send out a message to the world that we are in agreement. We are going to comply. We are not a tax haven anymore. We're going to conform. We're going to find those fraudsters. As for a secondary school, I was a teacher at one time. I really think it's the most important time in one's life. Good, invest in it. It's going to be the best investment you'll ever make. Thank you.
I think it's a great shame that the Daily Mail is the British Isles expert on cannabis, and there's an awful lot of hysteria based on totally inaccurate information. The situation to me is quite clear. Qualified doctor believes that medicinal cannabis is the best thing for their patient, then they should be able to prescribe it. End of story. Not be told what they should be doing by politicians. As regards the secondary school for Kennevay, I think that's terrific if you can find the right location for it.
apart from anything else, it stops a whole lot of young folk having to trawl all the way into St Helier and come all the way home again every day and still get a decent education. I am sick and tired of the hypocrisy that goes on in international finance. It's an absolute disgrace. This island keeps getting a kicking. We keep falling over backwards to comply with the OECD and so on and so forth. It is the United States that says they want to tax their citizens right across the planet. So we fall in with their tax information exchange arrangements, and yet in Delaware they have their own on-board, on-continent tax haven. It is hypocrisy in just about everywhere you look. City of London, major tax avoidance centre, and yet we keep falling over backwards to comply. I say, let's just take a breath. Let's start saying, set up a level playing field, and when there's a level playing field there, we will play ball.
First of all, on the issue of legalisation of cannabis, I think we should take the medical advice, but I'm very conscious of the fact that I've learned quite a lot about this issue. There are clearly medical issues with people with chronic illness that cannabis could be assisting, but we need to take advice and we can't just simply row against the international tide, and I think we've actually got expertise probably in the UK that's better than ours, if I may say, so I think we should follow that. Kit, I've spent more time on FATCA than I think virtually anything else, and I've spent many times on things. I'm afraid the FATCA agreement, just so that you understand it, it was effectively, the problem was signing up for information on exchanging information from high net worth individuals known as non-DOMs to the UK. The argument is the UK tax authority was not asking for that information themselves, but we were going to give it to them, and that's what Senator Bailhache was principled about. I'm afraid that the Chief Minister and I, on the steps of number 10, tried to defend Jersey, tried to say we are not a tax haven, we are cooperative. In fact, we've got better transparency than most places in the world. And if we would have not have agreed with it, we would have been damned. And I'm afraid I'm pleased to say that Senator Bailhache withdrew the proposition. We have to comply to the international community. There are red lines. You're going to hear that actually there are red lines that we should not be bullied. There are some red lines, but that wasn't it, I can tell you. Yes, we should have a new Kenway school, and if I'm in the States, you'll get the funding for it because it's needed. We need learning and teaching environments which are appropriate, and we've got an awful lot to do in education to reform our educational system. Thank you very much.
Right, well, I can categorically tell you that on this panel, I'm the one who knows most about cannabis. It's something I've researched for quite some time, and it stops cancer from metastasizing. I've met with people on the island with MS, fibromyalgia, with PTSD, all sorts of range of conditions. These people are suffering right here, right now. Why are politicians getting between a doctor's professional opinion, the plethora of scientific evidence, and just the moral aspect? I mean, if this can improve people's quality of life, isn't that the whole point in a health service? I mean, maybe that's just some foolish notion that I believe in. As for the school, I agree in principle, but where the money is going to come from, I have no idea. It's a matter of money. There is a massive hole in the finances to the tune of £95 million. So apparently it's there. I don't know. Second question. It's my understanding that the comments issued by Senator Gorst urged states members not to support Senator Bailhache's amendment, as it would have harmed Jersey's reputation. Senator Bailhache offered to resign, but for some reason this wasn't accepted. So much for collective responsibility. That's all I have to say on that. Thank you.
Cannabis for an end-of-life situation, pain control, well, I'm afraid I will be led by the medical profession because I do not know enough about it personally. But I can, in certain circumstances, see a case for it, I have to admit. But if it goes beyond that, I have personal experience of what it can do to somebody, and that would be an absolute no. FATCA. Yes, it's going to come. Transparency, we are trying to be a finance centre of excellence. We will have to eventually adopt it. I don't see that we're going to have a choice. Mrs. Mitchell, Kenove School. You asked, would the people standing here in principle agree to it? I don't think anybody would dare, in principle, say no. But it comes down to the fact that you have a school with currently built for 450 pupils with 900 in it. It needs to be a much larger footprint. You've got to find that and the funding. But the principle's easy, I'm afraid.
but the rest of it's difficult.
Hello, if I could deal with Kit's question first. Yes, it's the reluctance to move on FATCAs that damages us as a finance centre, and I'm glad Lyndon said that we're well regulated and transparent, because we certainly need to be. And in fact, it was the authorities' reluctance to give information on a French citizen's tax affairs that caused the French to blacklist, and nothing to do with one of our members speaking to a French newspaper about the reality of being a politician in Jersey. And if we attended the attack meeting, we also attended the Chamber of Commerce meeting, we attended the construction meeting, we attended the public sector modernisation meeting, we listened to everybody. In terms of the new secondary school, yes, a new one's needed, and the new house will need to sit down and find a suitable site, because the current site I don't think is suitable. We can't extend onto the playing fields. Legalising cannabis for medicinal purposes, I think doctors should have the option to prescribe cannabis-derived medicines, but I think herbal medicines not prescribed in proper quantities can actually be quite damaging. Having said that, I don't like the idea of the police hounding people who take cannabis who find that it really helps their condition.
There's a daddy long legs. Take it away. Right. Legalising cannabis for medical purposes. I'm told that there are two components in cannabis. One component makes you high, and the other part is the medicinal part. Now, if it can be synthesised, I'm sure that would solve the problem. The FATCA set up, in fact, the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel did a report on this, because actually the delay that was set up would only delay it, I think it was until 2016, so that it really made very little difference. So it was better just to go with it rather than delay the transparency. The new school for Kennevay, the question has always been where and what happens to the old site. There is a suggestion that it uses the green fields just along the road beyond the new Bellevue development. But I don't think people like the concept of building on a green field. So that has got to be sorted out and discussed. And it's what do we do with the site that's left when the school's moved? I think somebody, one of your proposed deputies suggested allotments, I think. I'm not sure, you don't want to have a great big set of building there to ruin the life around there for everybody else. Thank you. Yes, I've gone.
Cannabis is a complex answer to that question. Actually, it should always be, any drugs that we use should always be led by medical professional advice. The Health Minister is currently advised by a body called the Jersey Misuse of Drugs Advisory Council, which works in a similar way to NICE in the United Kingdom. We know that in the USA there's 2 states that have now legalised it, and Uruguay, I think it's Uruguay, have legalised it as well. And the UK government, via the Home Office, is doing a review of that to see what the actual medical outcomes are. It's got to be medically led, and then we will be able to then make a decision on the back of that. It's right, it shouldn't be a political decision, it should be a medical professional decision, but looking at the actual evidence of what the benefits might be. The school, absolutely, which is why I spoke about education this evening, that we should be really ashamed of what's happened there. We need a new teaching environment in the west of the island. We know there are still difficulties about the site. The money is actually in the capital programme. And the finance industry, we are a centre of excellence, we are transparent, we have signed up to both the US and the UK FATCA. We had a simple difference on one particular element, which was about non-res, non-DOMs, and the timing that should come in. I believed it should come in at the same time. Philip believed it should be slightly later, but things moved on because of the common reporting standard of the OECD as well, which we've also signed up to. It's a fast-moving world, and we need to make sure that there's a level playing field for everybody in the financial services world. Thank you.
I agree absolutely with what Senator Gorst has said in relation to cannabis, and I've got nothing to add to that. So far as the FATCA issue is concerned, I think that tax transparency is extremely important, and I did not attempt to delay the introduction of the FATCA agreement. In fact, I voted for it. Where the difference lay was that I was concerned that the agreement in relation to people who are resident but not domiciled in the United Kingdom and not therefore liable to pay tax in the United Kingdom, the obligation to give information in that respect should be delayed until it was an obligation that applied across the board. The current position is that our financial institutions are at a disadvantage compared with financial institutions in Singapore and Switzerland and so on. My colleagues disagreed with me because they thought that such an approach to defer the implementation in relation to res non-doms would be misconstrued as indicating that we were not a cooperative jurisdiction. That was the disagreement between us. So far as the new school at Kennevay is concerned, I remember that this was an issue in this hall 3 years ago when the elections took place in 2011. And I think it's high time the nettle was grasped and we did something about it.
With regard to cannabis, there's a whole variety of views, and one of the concerning things has come from New Zealand, where we find that its use in adolescence actually means that you have an average of an IQ of 9 points less than adolescents that don't use it, and it also puts up the risk of psychosis by a factor of 3. So there's quite serious side effects. Having said that, there's obviously problems with alcohol too, which Chris has quite rightly pointed out this evening. So it's a difficult situation. It's similar to when Valium was around. These drugs do give short-term relief to symptoms, but sometimes there's long-term side effects, and it needs more thought. And that's why the UK is still, at the moment, not legalising it. And probably we'll wait to see what happens in America. I've heard a variety of views on the FATCA, and I think that it's already been discussed thoroughly. As far as education, I think our whole secondary school system needs review. As far as I understand it from the past, 3 of the schools were in the bottom 15 of the whole of UK, and I tried to find out recently whether this is still the case, and we're not allowed to know that during the election time. So there's a lot of concern with our secondary school education that needs review in the next government. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am very strong on education, so I believe that the education is at the core of island existence and the remedy for many of the current problems. If the new school will help to undertake studies and resolve the logistical issues, then I fully support it. Not to mention the benefits that will flow with that. Of course, new courses will give more skills to prospective employees, and if more apprenticeship will come as a result of that, this will in return provide job experience and effectively bring a wide range of new workforce in the island. In terms of medical cannabis, I agree with others that medical expertise must be considered first when it comes to legalizing cannabis. There may be positive effects of using cannabis, but there is also many potential threats and concerns, especially when it comes to controlling it. So how do we know that a person prescribed with legal cannabis won't pass the drug to someone else? Then it becomes a problem and threat to the public. And I believe that if used, it must be done under the strict supervision of medical practitioners.
Kennevay School, absolutely. It's really disappointing to me that so little progress has been made in 3 years, and having attended the recent planning inquiry, it was quite clear that the process being followed where the site selection had got to a preferred site stage without actually going through community consultation is wrong. That absolutely has to be put right now. And so, yes, there's a real issue about loss of green fields, because that open field provides a break in the ribbon development, and will urbanise, if we fill the urban area, we have to be sure that's the right thing. I don't want to see building on the playing fields. And also, I think, but we have to look at these other options. There is use of the existing buildings, health centre, community centre, maybe a school centre. I really hope we get this business of where we're going to put our skills centre for the 14 pluses before we designing schools. Are we going to put it all at Highlands where they haven't got the facilities, or are we going to decentralise? That needs to be sorted out in the new system. FATCA, absolutely yes. We are very compliant, rightfully so, more than other places. We just cannot afford not to be, because our industry is at stake. And on the question of cannabis, I absolutely rely on medical opinion. I'm not an expert. If it relieves symptoms and the medics say it's okay, then I'll go with it. Of course we will. It's common sense. And there must be special cases, I feel. But generally, I'm sure that is not the case. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'll take these in reverse order as well. Joe, as I said in my opening address, I attended the school from 77 to 82. It was quite outdated then. There has been some tinkering around the edges in years since I've left, but it is obvious that something needs to be done about it. I favour trying to keep it in the vicinity, because I think it's what makes the area vibrant. From memory, we used to go up to the precinct at lunchtime, so that brings money into the shops and keeps the shops alive. So I think a solution of keeping it either where it is or as close to where it possibly can be would be the best for the area. In relation to what's already been said about FATCA, what I can say is going forwards, I would support anything that shows that we are a transparent finance industry. It's a very important industry to Jersey, and we need to comply with anything which is imposed upon us, providing it's not complete to the detriment of what we've already got. In relation to medical cannabis, I think the argument for a lot of people that want to use it is to control either pain or muscle spasms. Now, there are other medicines that you can use to control pain or muscle spasms, albeit with some after effects. But no doubt any drug, any medication that you take has after effects. And my main problem with it would be, once it's out of the bag, how do you then control that person from passing it to someone else? So there are supply control issues that I would be quite concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you. Legalising cannabis, it's not really a politician's decision. It shouldn't be. It should be down to the medical profession to advise a politician that you go onto a list if they think it's appropriate. So politicians should keep well clear of that. With regard to the finance industry being transparent and compliant, and I think Sir Philip Bailhache has explained quite clearly his position of why he made that stance. But I think we did get to the right decision eventually. The states did come to make that put us in the position to make our finance industry stronger, and I think we are in a better place because of that. With regard to the school, there's certainly no doubt that a new school is needed. Where and when is the issue, I think, which has to be consulted upon widely with the whole of the community. The funds are earmarked in the future capital funds, so we should be getting on with it as soon as we possibly can. It's just a matter of we need to talk clearly and openly with everybody involved.
Ladies and gentlemen, being tail end Charlie, there's very little left to say on these particular subjects, but I'll try and add something new. As far as the school is concerned, as others have said, it's clearly not fit for purpose. A new site, I think, is the most sensible and cost-effective way. It's reaching the agreement as to where that's going to be. And of course, the existing site to be reused, and parishioners have to feed in very closely as to whether that would be most appropriate as new housing, affordable housing, or facilities that are appropriate for you as parishioners. That's something that needs to be done. Key to all of this, of course, is tying it into a review of the education system to make certain that we set the right standards across the piece and ensure that although there's been some negative press on education, there's some very good things going on. However, we do need to align our curriculum with the future and fast-moving needs of industry and career opportunities for our children. It needs to be an open debate so we can understand all the issues. With regard to FATCA, of course, Jersey is, as you will appreciate, very well regulated, and that's absolutely correct. We didn't have collective responsibility, which is why the issue in question was played out in the public domain. That's not good for confidence. We have it now, and so those type of debates will happen internally, and that's exactly as it should be to protect the islands and protect confidence. As far as cannabis is concerned, of course, that's got to be driven by medical advice. There is some very interesting research going on in Oxfordshire about the use of cannabis for treating tumours. But as far as the use for medical purposes is concerned, it must be led by the experts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Could we have some more questions, please? The lady in the striped jumper.
Carolina Sova, Brelade. How would you like to support local companies?
Pardon? How would you like to support .com companies, I think you said?
Was it local or .com?
I think it was Sorry?
Local, wasn't it? It's local.
Sorry, could we just check on that? Was it local companies or .com companies? .com companies. Local, sorry.
Local.
Gentlemen, there? Yep.
Good evening. Rupert Cottonage from Montelebrun. There's been a bit of loose discussion about immigration or population. Can I ask the candidates, if you were elected, do you see the need to control population numbers in the island, and how would you actually go about that?
The gentleman here.
Much of the prosperity of the island's economy has come through the finance industry. Much of the prosperity of the island's economy has come through the finance industry in Jersey. Some believe we have too many of our eggs in one basket. Number of candidates have mentioned diversification in the Trinity hustings as one of the principles they stand for. If the finance industry was to leave Jersey for any reason, either rapidly or more gradually, in what other fields or sectors would the candidates envisage Jersey moving into to make up for the substantial shortfall which would be caused by the departure of the finance industry in Jersey? Peter Lusworth from St Brelade's District number 2.
Right, so we have three questions. How would you support local companies? Do you see a need to control population, and how? And what fields do you think the island could move into if the finance industry was to leave the island? If I could ask Senator Ferguson to start, please.
Right, local companies. You've heard people mention actually reducing the red tape. I understand there are 45 different forms a small company has to fill in during the year. In fact, it's got to the point that Social Security have just sent a letter out to all companies with less than 10 people working for them, offering to send somebody round to help fill in all the forms. Haven't they heard that perhaps it would be easier to reduce the complexity of the forms? That will be a pretty good start, I think. Immigration, well, first of all, we need to know how many people we've got. I don't think the target will work because, if you get to June and you've got 325 people who've arrived, how are you going to just pull up the drawbridge? It doesn't work. Finance industry and prosperity, diversification, yes, we've got our standard industries like agriculture and tourism. The finance industry actually has been changing, and some sectors of it have been contracting for some years. But it's for government to provide the framework, and it's for the private sector to actually start businesses. Government is not there to actually decide what businesses are going to succeed. They're very bad at it.
We've already set up Jersey Business to help support local companies, and they are doing that. They are supporting them in all the ways that you would expect. Yes, with red tape and regulation and making sure that they can comply with that. We've set up the Innovation Fund for those companies that have got, local companies that have got new ideas and are struggling to finance them. It's not 45 forms that companies need to fill in. It's actually less than 10. But one of the biggest things that's going to help local companies is when we roll out e-government, because they're going to be able to then tell us once. They won't even then have to fill in 10 forms. It'll all be done online. One of the other important things we're going to need to do is to review the employment law, because I think the time has come where employers are worried about employing people because of the regulation and the constraints of that, and perhaps we need to start to think about exemptions for those employing less than 5 people. Population, the new employment, the new housing and work law is already controlling population. As Paul said, figures have been released today that show that the number of non-local licences down, number of non-local people in work are down, but it's about planning for the long term. In the next 3 years, we're going to have to ask the question, what sort of Jersey do we want? And we're going to have that conversation, and population is a strong part of that. Financial services is already diversified. We put a lot of effort into resource into making sure that we don't have this once and for all move. Yes, it's changing. Yes, we need to be developing new markets, and that's exactly what we're doing. Other diversification is around technology. Thank you very much.
The trouble with sitting next to the Chief Minister is that I agree with most of what he says, and it's very difficult to be constructive and new following on after him. I do think that there is too much red tape, and that we ought to try to improve the ability of local businesses to start without putting too many obstacles in their way, particularly if you wish to lease or develop land. It is extraordinarily difficult to overcome all the hurdles that have to be overcome. And I agree, so far as the employment law is concerned, we need to look again at the balance between the rights of employees, which need to be protected, and the obligation to try to make life more practical for small employers. On the immigration and population, yes, I do think it must be controlled. And in fact, we do control it under the work and housing law that was passed in 2012. And Chief Minister and Senator Routier have done quite a good job in drawing the balance between the needs of local businesses to expand and the requirement to make sure that the population doesn't get out of hand. So far as the finance industry is concerned, I don't think there's any prospect, if I may say so, that it is going to leave the island in the immediate future. It is a diversified industry which has a number of different component parts, but we ought to try to diversify into other industries as well.
With regard to supporting local companies, absolutely we need to make the regulation proportionate and a bit of common sense applied. And in my manifesto I've suggested that the employment law should be looked at, because when rights are given to employees after just 6 months, then that's quite a deterrent for businesses to expand when they've got to then, if the business doesn't turn out as expected, they then applications to JACs, etc. And I think that's why we've seen the 0 hours contracts grow. With regard to the population control, I think it's important that we allow in people with appropriate skills that we need to allow, for instance, in the medical world and in other industries, so we get really competent people bringing their expertise to the island. But it should stop at that. And in the meantime, we want better training for local youngsters and possibly apprenticeships, so that they're better able to fill those gaps as employment comes about. When we look at diversification, I think the digital technology is going to take off, but we need to be competitive like countries such as Estonia and Singapore, where Wi-Fi is much cheaper and available to all, and possibly look at renewable energy, because energy costs are likely to go up in the future. Thank you.
I don't agree that the population and immigration is under control. It's not under control. The current policy and the other policy that might be implemented is incapable of restricting net immigration or the total size of population to a specific number. And anyone who pretends that this can be done is either deceiving himself or herself or seeking to deceive the electorate. The way to go, simply invest in young people, the courses which will give people the right skills for the right jobs. Just remember, not everyone can work in the banking industry. This is about 50% of the island population workforce. I'm going to ask you, what about the other 50% of the population in the island? So the education is the answer. We need people who will stay in Jersey and have the right skills for the right jobs. As for the businesses, as I said, I believe that Jersey companies should be prioritized and protected by law, and therefore if particular services are available in Jersey, then contracts should be granted to local contractors in Jersey. And I'll give you a bad example. Brown and Mason Limited Company from Kent have been awarded contract by the state of Jersey to dismantle the Bailhache waste plant. Does anyone know here what the Kent parish is? I've been here 11 years and I still haven't found it. Have you? If we give priority to local businesses, there'll be more money going to Jersey, more big contracts for local companies, more jobs to fill with local people, more taxes and social contributions paid to the treasury. Thank you.
We must act to diversify now. The finance industry is diversifying already, but we need to be working on renewable energy. There's definitely opportunities there for businesses in micro renewables, and we need structures of energy regulation and working with the JEC to do that. And on Digital Jersey, there's this issue, rain come up the other night, about upload speeds. If we're going to use cloud computing, other things, at the moment we've got a differential in speeds on Digital Jersey that I think we'll have to address in the future to make sure we take the full benefit of that. And of course, I think we must hang on to finance, because if you want to see what it's like without finance, go and look at Alderney. On immigration, we can't control it, but we can manage it. We've got a policy, and it's being managed through the population law. There's signs of it's working, but in the long term, it's got to be training and investment to ensure that we don't have to bring in people. And of course, with this growth in population, we're going to have an urban approach to urban development to ensure that those areas are good places to live. Otherwise, we will see our green fields lost. So that's a really important part. Local companies, red tape, joined up government, reduced bureaucracy, and that means solving this data protection problem that gets in the way all the time of having one source of information going to people. Social security, start-up concessions. We can't do tax concessions on organising states building projects to ensure that local businesses get that work.
Okay, on the first question about local businesses, 3 things that local businesses need: good, solid supply chain, a good product, and good staff. And very often, it's the third one that lets local business down, because they cannot get good staff, or they can't retain good staff. So I have a seat on the Employment Forum, and part of that is to make recommendations to the Social Security Minister on employment law and minimum wage issues. Now, family-friendly proposals will be coming along shortly, and again, that's going to place more emphasis on businesses, and small businesses, again, are going to struggle with that. So we need to make sure there's a mechanism in there that guards small businesses, because they are the backbone of our economy. In relation to the immigration issue, we've had the latest figures out today, 1,450 people unemployed. That's still high. This summer, there was still a lot of people that came into the island. Now, of course, there are going to be industries that rely on that influx. But it can't be right that we've got people who are not being skilled and not being prepared to go back into the workplace. And so the way we control our immigration is ultimately through employment. So if the jobs are being taken up by local people who want to do the jobs and are skilled to do the jobs, then that issue will cure itself. In relation to the finance industry, Peter, I think firstly we need to preserve what we've got and make sure it doesn't go into decline. But there is a digital future, and Alderney got there, and they got on board quickly with digital registrations. We need to see the next train coming and grab it as quick as we can. Thank you.
I'll just pick up on the point about the employment law. It's very important that we get a balance of protecting employees and also ensuring that it's not a block to get people into work. One of the things which I would like to think we might look at again is the introduction of a youth rate for the minimum wage, because I think there is an issue regarding getting young people into work, and so employers are perhaps thinking if they've got to pay the same rates as an older person, they're not sort of keen to take on young people, young local people. There's two ways of looking at that, I realise, but I know that it has been an issue in the past. With regard to do I see the need to control population? Yes, I mean there's no doubt about it. I do think we need to do that, but you know, there is a way. There is a way of doing that. We just need to be balanced. In my earlier comments, I talked about we've got to balance the needs of our businesses and also the environments we live in. So we need to do that, but also focusing on making sure that our education services are appropriate for encouraging people to get into work and not having to import people. With regard to diversification, yesterday I went to the Digital Hub launch, which was actually fantastic. There's lots of opportunities there, which people are really getting behind that and seeing opportunities. There is also an opportunity in the legal profession to expand that as well.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We are actually doing a very great deal with small businesses. They are the lifeblood of the economy and the community, as I said in my opening remarks. We set up Jersey Business, private sector board, private sector executive with experience, entrepreneurs who understand how to advise our small businesses. They give advice on business plan, cash flows, raising of access to finance. They provide mentoring services. All these things we need to do and more of, but they're doing a great job so far, and we need to put more investment into it. We've currently put about £800,000 a year. We've just started a review on the cost of doing business in Jersey. It's critical that the cost isn't too high, particularly for small businesses. That will look at red tape legislation and regulation that's inappropriate, and particularly a heavy burden on small businesses. We need to get it right. We need to look at places like Germany. They are the powerhouse of Europe, and quite frankly, they've got it right. Employment law, they've reduced the barriers to employment law. They've reduced social security for new businesses down to zero in the first year. We need incentives and tax breaks to encourage these to grow, these businesses to grow. Population, we can't close the door, ladies and gentlemen. What we need is sensible, high-value immigration, but we need to control it very carefully, and the new housing and work law is doing that. We're bringing in inward investment, new businesses, 33 new businesses this year so far, created 310 job opportunities, 90% were jobs for local people. That's really important. Replacing finance, we've got to diversify. We stick with finance, but we look at digital, fantastic opportunities in new industries like that. Thank you.
First question in terms of local company support. 80% of business on the island employs between 1 and 5 people. So instead of blocking them and making it difficult to set up in business, we should welcome it. Ireland, New Zealand, South Africa, and some countries in the Middle East, you can set up a business in 2 days. And we can't do that yet. We need to aspire to do that, make it easier for people who are the wealth creators to set up in business. In order to distribute wealth, somebody's got to create it first. Remember that. Rupert, on population and migration, you've heard that the control of housing and work law has done wonderful things, and the figures out today confirm that. I don't accept that. I actually believe that there's a whole sub-economy out there. There's a whole sub-grey economy and cash-in-hand economy, and we're policing the companies that come to the population office, but we have no idea as to what's going on in the cash-in-hand economy. And these are where companies can't employ people, so some subcontractor will employ people. And that is something we don't know about. Today, by plane and by boat, more people are arriving. And finally, England has Stonehenge. England has, Northern Ireland has the Giant's Causey. In terms of diversification, we should celebrate our culture, the coin hoard, La Cotte, and bring people in with a visitor centre who want to specifically see things like that. Also the marine industry, tidal energy, and allow the finance industry to diversify itself through licensing from various states' departments. I'm cut off.
Do you know, to help small business, I think the state should have a policy that before we go and bring companies in from overseas to do jobs, we should at least get a quote from local businesses. We can't, you know, pass a law that you have to use a local business, but let's get a quote first, because many of these local companies could do the work that we're farming out. Also forms, whether it's 45, well it's not, or under 10, it doesn't really matter. There should be one form. When I started my first business, I went down to Cyril and Marco House, registered the business name, one form, no computers in those days. It wasn't 10 shillings, I'm not that old, it was 50 pence. And I probably complained about the price, but it was easy. And there's the fees that go with it. You have data protection and company rating. It's cost hundreds, if not thousands. You know, we've got to do something about that, be realistic about making sure these small companies can start up and grow and continue. Immigration, well, the days have gone where youngsters go straight into the finance industry. The culture is changing, fortunately, more now. The back-to-work schemes are working. More youngsters are going into different industries, and that's going to take a long time to filter through, but we must manage our immigration very, very carefully, and the housing and work law can help us to do that. Yes, diversifying the economy, the digital economy, emerging industries, agriculture, but tourism. Come on, let's not wait for finance to go before we get behind tourism again. Let's get behind tourism again right now. Thank you.
How would I help local industries? Well, I'll tell government to get out of them. You know, we don't pick winners. It's the entrepreneurs that pick winners. But what we can do is help them. Red tape, yes, we've heard about that. I went to the Hub last night at the Forum, where they've opened up a space there where people can use a desk to, you know, people start a new business, just use a desk and a computer, or as they grow, then they can rent just a cheap office upstairs to grow the business. That's the sort of incentives we need to help people. We need a level playing field in terms of tax. UK companies based here pay no tax, local companies based here pay tax. We need a level field in relation to that. And Jersey Business we need to let people know that Jersey Business is there. I don't think half the people have even heard of them. There's lots of free expert advice there. That's how we can help them. But I'm pleased to say that I've heard on the grapevine, and I hope it's generally known, that a local company, whatever you might think about the police station, a local company's got the contract to do the police station, and I'm really pleased to hear that. On diversification, well, let's not wait till the finance industry's gone. We need to be doing other things. I agree with renewable energy and all that, but actually let other people develop it, make the mistakes, and let's go in with prototype 4. But meanwhile, we'll secure the seabed as ours, and they can't put anything down there. They'll have to pay us to put it there. Those are the sort of things we need to be doing. Population control, I say in my manifesto, I'm not playing to the audience, you'll never control it till we get these skills right. 3 years for 13 bricklayers, I ask you.
Jersey Business here helps a lot of people with their businesses. When I started a business in London, I went for a one-day course. I think that could be very helpful. I don't believe there's 40 forms unless you're forming a company, so that's rubbish. However, if you're going to do that, that could be very much helped by somebody within the Jersey Business Centre. I believe grants, as we're going for innovation funds, is a really good idea. I believe help with bookkeeping, sending somebody on a bookkeeping course for a couple of days would be really helpful. I believe one thing that would really be helpful is if somebody developed the website capabilities of new businesses. A lot of new businesses need to go online to sell their things. As for immigration, as I've said originally, I think it's a very, very complicated subject. I think we need a specialised population minister just to deal with that subject. I do have one or two ideas as to how we could actually immigration is going up every year because we are obviously an attraction. We have jobs here, whereas other places don't. I think that what we could do is when we import nurses and doctors and highly trained teachers, we give them a termination bonus in order to leave, as they do in Saudi Arabia, for instance. I believe diversification of the finance industry is really important. Tourism, really, really important. We've got great things here, but obviously, if we get more population, we won't be attractive. We've got to develop high broadband will help us develop new markets. That's wide evidence, and we've got to go. Tidal energy opportunities is at 2 or 3 years behind. We should go for that. Thank you.
Well, I'm delighted that this evening we've been joined by a member of the States of Guernsey. Welcome. I just hope Guernsey hasn't run out of carrots. In respect of local companies, we finally got round to it. Yes, local companies pay their way and pay their tax. It's the companies that are registered outside the island that manage to avoid this. We've got to look at this problem and find a solution. Population numbers, well, I think it would be probably a flying start if we actually had a better grip on who's going in, who's going out. I'm not even convinced by the tourism figures. I don't know, are those local families visiting relatives and coming home again? There doesn't seem to be any clear indication. I don't want to go down the Chinese route of one child per family, but I really do think that in respect of our younger people, a level of responsibility must be encouraged. It's no longer good enough to expect that you can have as many children as you like if you can't afford them. That is a critical thing that seems to be lost on a number of people. Diversification, of course, it's marine energy. Let's have more yachts. Why on earth aren't we running the platinum grade Yachtmaster certificate in this island backed by Sunsail? The best Yachtmaster certificate you can get on the planet. The place with the biggest currents, the biggest rise and fall of tide and loads of rock. That's the way we should be going.
I spend a lot of time in Cyril Lamarck House, and I pass the plaque dedicated to the late Cyril Lamarck. And often in early morning, Colin Powell is in his office at 7:05, virtually every morning. I speak about our past leaders, and I ask Colin Powell about what made Jersey successful. And I'm told that Cyril Lamarck said, he used to say regularly, confidence is the name of the game. What does confidence need? Well, it needs the right stable political environment, the right tax situation, stable finances. I've heard on the platform tonight almost that we're in terminal decline, that things are getting worse, that we're almost broke. Jersey's in a fantastic position, ladies and gentlemen. We fought the financial crisis and we are strong, and we've been making good decisions to secure our future. We need to control population. I'm proud to say that I designed the law that Paul Routier took forward. And actually the statistics today prove that control of migration, you can't control population, you can control population. Financial services is growing, but we need to diversify the economy. I was with other ministers last night for the opening of the hub, and the buzz, the new business creation, the young entrepreneurs that are setting up new businesses was absolutely unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, don't believe all the negativity. Jersey has a great future. We do have challenges, but we've made good decisions, and we need to believe in ourselves. Thank you very much.
I'd like to echo what Alan Green says. The best thing the government can do when supporting local businesses is just get out of the way. Medium and small businesses are the backbone of the economy, and in my manifesto I stated that I wanted to reduce the stamp payable by the self-employed, because they're also overburdened with red tape and economic barriers to entry. We should also stop ushering in wave after wave of multinational corporations. King Street is beginning more and more to look like generic street, and I think that plays a factor in why footfall is going down. There's obviously a need to control population. As an immigrant, I need to declare a potential bias in that, but my opinion is that the root of the problem lies in education. You've heard lots of the candidates here talk about education being a priority, but when you get down to it, the education system we have was designed for the Industrial Revolution. That was over 100 years ago. Things need to change. Like Lake Kennedy School, it's not fit for purpose. Diversification, I can't predict the future, but what will happen if the government tries to do so is that we will all suffer as a result, and will the economy. Renewable energy is something that will happen in the future. I don't want it to get to the point where our circumstances force our hand to go down that road, but as it stands, Jersey Electricity import 90+% of the island's energy. All of that money straight to France, it never comes back. So this is something we need to look at. It will create jobs, it will sort of get a new, because if you have energy independence, everything else follows. It really is as simple as that. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take these in reverse order, if I may. I don't believe the finance industry is going to be leaving anytime soon. But it is going to be through technology companies, niche companies coming in. The technology side of it is evolving so very, very quickly. Nobody can actually realise where it's going at the moment, and we can't put our finger on which bit we're going to be in, but because we have to look at all of it. But what we have to be is much quicker to recognise opportunities. And I am minded that some years ago we could have had online gambling, which is basically just a server farm. Guernsey doing rather well at it. And we're not really, because we've only just adopted it, a bit late. Population control. Yes, a lot of our population pressure will be actually internal because of the population we have here that is growing, because our birth rate is in excess of our death rate, and we have people living longer. But we will always need some immigration into the island in the short term until we have enough training. In the longer term, specialists. But it would be nice to make sure we only bring in productive people. Small businesses, I touched on this in my opening words, licensing, employment law, but I do think that obviously the bureaucracy is unwieldy. And there is support for small businesses that have just started, but the ones that have been going 5 or 10 years, where they've had to slim down and they're still struggling, we just need to literally get out of the way. We need to increase footfall in town and possibly look at lowering GST on imports, because that will also gain people into the high street and into the businesses. But we must also look at the internet, because not enough people are using it to sell, not locally, but elsewhere.
Hello. In terms of local businesses, I said we listen to people, and I sat down with the President of the Chamber of Commerce and some of his colleagues last week to ask what was the problem with red tape. I really don't like abstractions. I wanted to know what he meant. And he talked about part of the problem with the anti-discrimination law is that he could be fined if a member of his staff was guilty of casual racism, and he needs to put in place training for that, which costs him money. So, and then he talked about, yes, the difficulty of sacking staff if they weren't suitable, and he wanted the period for unfair dismissal to be extended to 2 years. However, we together put our heads together and said, well, the answer to that is for Jacks to have an outreach service. If you're too small to have an HR person, let Jacks provide you with an HR service, and they're quite happy to pay so much per year per employee for that service. I do think local companies need to look to their laurels. They don't always provide goods at the right price, and they don't always offer service. I know I've bought things on the internet that could have been cheaper here, and we've said, look, we can bring this in from abroad with the freight charges for such a price. Will you give us 10% off? No, sorry, go and get it somewhere else. Well, that's not the attitude to get your business. And I'd just like to say well done to the people in Voisins who offer an excellent service. I'm always happy to go in there. Oh, sorry, no time for any other questions.
Okay, at the beginning I said I'd try to wrap up this meeting about 9:30, so I don't think we've got time for any further questions. I'd like to thank all the candidates for all their answers to the questions that have been asked. And I'd like to thank you all for coming, particularly in the heat we've had in here. I'm sure it's down to the number of bodies we've got here, not the other reasons that I'm sure some people will use. Particular thanks to my support team with the stopwatches, bells and microphones. Next time you're likely to see all of these candidates' names together is on the 15th of October on your ballot paper. Please make sure you turn out to see your ballot paper and to make your vote count, whichever one you choose to vote for. People have fought wars for your democratic rights, I'm told, so please show your appreciation for that by using that right and voting. Thank you all for coming tonight. Good night.